Hello and welcome to my latest cleaning video. Picked up a few books in the last month of July. In fact, apart from what I'm going to show you today, I did actually pick up a massive vintage paperback collection, well over 1,000 books. It was 14 boxes, and that's going to keep me in cleaning videos for the next year or two. Absolutely loads to go through on that one. Predominantly Pan books, but there was 6 boxes of other vintage publishers as well, and they're fantastic stuff to go through. So we'll be looking at just a touch of those today, but I've got some sort of dedicated videos on that collection planned, and they will be coming up very soon. So anyway, this is just what I've picked up most recently in the last sort of few weeks or so since we last did one of these. And the first one is this absolutely gorgeous edition of Gulliver's Travels. It's a lovely hardback. It was published by Ward-Lock in the 1920s, and it's got these beautiful colour illustrations by Harry G. Thieker. Now there's a few other volumes that are uniform in this series. As you can see, absolutely fantastic illustrations, and there's 48 plates dotted throughout the book, and this one's a lovely complete copy. I've seen these before. Oh, look at this. I've seen these before. The Merry-Go-Round, the magazine for boys and girls. Look at that. I've seen these before sell for about, I don't know, £80–85 a pop, which is a little rich for my taste. I was able to pick this one up. I think I paid about £12 for it, which I thought was a veritable bargain for a book which is as absolutely gorgeous as this one. I've always liked Gulliver's Travels, one of my favourite children's books, and this particular edition is just gorgeous. As you can see, it's an absolute beauty. Now this copy, and the face of it is absolutely fine, front and back, but the spine, unfortunately, as you can see, I think professionally they call this mottling, and you can see there's some sort of white residue there, and that may be candle wax possibly, and then a bit, it's sort of, I don't know, it's like dirt or grime, and there's some spots in that. I don't really want to put polish on this, so all I've done, there's nothing to rub out inside, it's just this spine here. So I've got a soft damp cloth, and I'm just going to see if any of this dirt will come off just with an application of, well, in effect, just a little bit of warm water. I've not even put any sort of detergent or soap in, just to see if it does make any sort of a difference on this spine. In actual fact, maybe already it possibly has on that sort of waxy residue. Well, there we are. There's quite a bit of dirt has come off there. I'm going to try it on the other end. I don't want to be rubbing dirt into dirt, do I? But I'm doing it as gently as I can, basically. And it may be a several stage process, this, but it does look as if the waxy white sort of substance at the top has come off. There's more dirt there. So we'll let that one dry out. I've actually got a bit of kitchen towel here just to dab it, because I don't want the book to get too sort of damp. In actual fact, I think that's done quite a nice job of cleaning up some of the dirty marks on that. I wouldn't recommend, obviously, using water too often, but in this particular case, I don't think we have much of an option. There we are. That's all right, isn't it? That's definitely come up better than it was. That's for sure. So there's a few little marks still there, but on the whole, that's lovely. That's going to dry out absolutely fine. And when you think the book is 100 years old, what a beauty, eh? Absolute beauty. A veritable bar, I'd say 12 quid. I mean, blimey O'Reilly. You couldn't buy this brand new, probably in a shop. They couldn't even make that and sell it for less than 30. So to pick up a nice vintage antique, in effect, copy for less than about the price of a hardback, that's fantastic, isn't it? I'm just looking at a little bit of wear there, but I don't think it's the same sort of mess that was on the front. But I just think there's like a little line in the rail there, so I'm just gonna get my old trusty toothbrush, because that's the sort of thing a bit difficult to get out with a finger. I'll do the other side while I'm here. There we are. But it does look better. It's definitely going to look better on the shelf after that little wipe. So a lovely, lovely book. We'll pop that one over there. Next one we got, well, we might as well do this because it's in a sort of similar vein. It is more aimed at children. This is one of the Wardlock prize novels. So remember a little while back I did number 24, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. A lovely book in this series. And here's another one, number 38 in the series. And this is Lew Wallace's Ben-Hur. Now, once again, these date from the 1920s, so they're almost 100 years old. As expected, like my 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the spine has sort of faded out, but not too bad. I've got a very, very delicate dust wrapper here, so we'll carefully slip that one off. There's not much I'm going to be able to do with the dust wrapper, except in time I will pop that into a nice protective mylar sleeve so that it'll really like stand out on the shelf. So I just put that to one side. And the actual book itself, not too bad. It's a shame there isn't an illustration on the spine like there is on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but I don't mind. The only thing with this one, I've got a bit of a dusty top, so I'm going to need to give this one the old treatment with the toothbrush here. And you can see the dust coming off it. This is it's awful, isn't it? It's 100 years of dust. And I like to do this because I don't want really dirty books on my shelf. And as you can see, it's made a huge difference to the top of that book. I do it from a distance, I have to say, because it's a bit horrible. As you can see. But you would want to do this with any book that you've had really, that you bought brand new. I think if you buy second-hand books, one of the first, see that looks so much better. One of the first things I do is give the books a bit of a clean. Now, the actual boards on this are pretty clean themselves, but me being me, I will just rub over with my soft cloth and a bit of polish just to give it the once over and make sure it's as good as I can possibly get it. So give that a little squirt. I'm not going to need a lot on here because I was cleaning some books earlier. It's already got a little bit of like dampness there, and you don't want to go over the top with these because you run the risk of marking the book. So just a little bit, and then I'm just going to run this over, and it will give it, just to make sure, being such a brown and dark cover, almost certainly there's lots of sort of invisible muck and grime on here, which we're just taking off before I pop it back into its wrapper for now, until I get ready to cover the dust wrapper. There we are. And that probably took off more than the eye can see, to be honest. But yeah, that's the original book that the classic movie was based on. Obviously, there's a lot of fox in there. This one's got a prize stamp in there from a school library, and that's quite a common sight with these books because they were given away. Well, it's called the prize library, and they were often given away as school prizes at the end of term and things like that. So I've got a few books like that in my library. Next one then, another one in a similar vein. This is a First World War title called The Great Airship, and it's absolutely phenomenal. This is a book I've been after for a very long time, and although it's not particularly rare, it is definitely scarce in a dust wrapper. I mean, super, super rare. This book is well over 100 years old now. I think it came out just at the end of the First World War. So it's super scarce, and certainly ties in with my love of great airships and the huge like dirigibles. Now, this particular one, it has been put into a protective wrap of sorts, and it is indeed protecting it. However, The actual wrap itself, I'm not a fan of the way it's been done, and the wrap feels aged. I don't know how long it's been in this wrap, but I don't think it's the lovely archival style that I use. It's just too thin. So I'm going to take it out of this wrap because I'm not a fan of it, I have to say. I'd rather the book wasn't in this wrap, and I will put my own Mylar wrapping on at my leisure. And you can see once I've taken it off just how, mottled that particular plastic wrap was. And we don't want that on my book, so I'm just going to keep that over there. Now underneath, because this one has been protected, look how great and bright this jacket is. Now there's a little bit of wear there, which I think I'll be able to polish off because it's a shiny cover. I'm going to be able to delicately clean these, and look at that there, fantastic. So first of all, let's just have a look inside. I don't believe these are dated, but you never know. Yeah, he wrote quite a lot, this chap. Yeah, it's not dated, but I am absolutely 100% confident that that is the original first edition of this one. And I think it dates to 1918. So I'm using the same cloth, but I'm just going to pop a tiny bit more polish on. I'm going to see if I can get that bit there cleaned up, because that's the only bit I can see which is looking a bit dodgy. So let's see if it makes any sort of impact. And in actual fact, initially, no, it's not. It's just remaining there, so it may be something on the boards, but we'll give the rest of it a wipe over. Obviously we want to be careful, we don't want to take anything else off that we don't want to. Yeah, so that sort of stain, unfortunately, that's in the book. Now with regards to the top edge and dusting, I will give it a little dust, but this one doesn't seem too bad. But in a lot of cases, it can be almost invisible, so there's lots coming off though still. Look. Now I recently did a huge run of Collins Crime Club titles. I've cleaned them, and I've got some to show you today. I've cleaned, it was a collection that came in this vintage collection. I cleaned, there was 100 Collins Crime Club paperbacks from the 1930s, and they are absolutely fantastic and extremely fragile, but the collection hadn't been stored in the best of conditions, so the books themselves did need, the dust along the top was phenomenal. In fact, I had to wait for a good day, and I did it outside because the dust was so bad. But they've come up lovely, and all that's left now is some of them need their spines regluing because they were notorious for having bad spines, weak spines. And the other thing is that they almost all of them have got their original price that the owner paid for them back in the day, like in charity shops and that. So I've got those to do, and I've got I put out half a dozen or so, but I've already invested the best part of 10 hours into that collection, and I'm still not quite there yet. But there we are. So that is that. So I will put this one in its own dust wrapper in good time, along with Ben-Hur, and that'll be a real nice addition to my my vintage sort of hardback library, because it's certainly a nice book, that is for certain. Now the next couple don't actually have dust wrappers, and these are from the Dutton library, and these were the Everymans, and I've got two Everymans in the last couple of months. This is one by Alexander Dumas, the 45, not one of his most famous ones, but certainly a good one all the same. Really nice copy of that one. This one not actually dated, I don't think, but it's this style is pre, I think, 1930. This is an ever such a later one, Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens, one of my favourite sort of classic authors. Let's see if this one's dated as well. I think this was ever so slightly later. This is 1928, that particular edition. So these aren't first editions because they are super valuable, but they are nice early editions. And all that's required on those is just to go over the top with my trusty toothbrush here and see if there's anything on the tops. And in almost both cases there, those are both absolutely fine. So nothing to worry about there. So I'm getting quite a library of the Everymans now, and they are really, really great. So if you're into a classic, I think, well, why not have really nice editions, you know? So I think what we'll do, I'm just going to pause there. I'm going to pull the camera a little bit so we can see a little bit more of what we're getting on with. Okay, so as you remember, my last couple of videos, you know, I'm trying to put together a collection of the novels of Dick Francis, and luckily enough I've been able to get 2 more from his collection. Both of them have been signed, which I'm very, very pleased about. I'm still after For Kicks, which is one that, you know, I'm still searching for, but I've been able to get the next 2 after that, and that's Odds Against and Flying Finish. So here's Odds Against. So once again, this one's been popped into a wrapper, not by myself. Someone's actually popped one of these together, and it's a great wrapper it is. There we are. Broom Lynn was the designer, but the wrapper has been protected once again in, I wouldn't say in antiquity, but by someone who's just, you know, they've done a good job. You know, they've done the job of actually protecting the wrapper. But as you can see, it's been stored on the shelf. It's not in great condition, and it certainly doesn't make the book pop, which is what I like to see with dust wrappers. So underneath, the wrapper is absolutely fine. It's in lovely condition, and once I've got that in like a miler wrap, that's going to look really the business. So I'm just going to pop that to one side and look at the actual copy of this copy of Odds Against, and it's really, really nice one. It's come from a long time Dick Francis collector. Unfortunately, I missed his copy of For Kicks. Someone beat me to it, but I was able to get the next 2, and I was particularly delighted because this one and the other one are both signed by the author there, which is really good. So as I said, because Dick Francis himself is reasonably easy to collect these days, just going to give the top a wipe. I thought, well, I might as well make it quite special and try and find, because he was such a prolific signer, I think if I'm going to collect them, particularly the later novels, I want them to be signed copies. So there we are. That's just taken off that little bit of dust there. Yeah, I'm going to want them to be a bit special. So not everyone, but a lot of my Dick Francis books are all going to be signed copies. I think that's quite a nice little target, and it'll make it a bit more fun on the, you know, the thrill of the hunt, as it were. You know, as I said, he was a very, very prolific signer. Did a couple of sessions with him myself back in the 90s. He always used to come down to the southwest on holiday and stay in Torquay and Paignton. There we are, lovely. So yeah, delighted to get that. The Dick Francis collection is coming along strong. If I could just get For Kicks, I think I'd be well on my way. And they're such great novels. If you've never read them, they really are recommended. So there's Odds Against, and what a lovely first edition that is. Modern first, it is in great shape. I'm absolutely delighted to have that, and might as well do the other one while we're here. So this is Flying Finish. It was from the same collection, and it's got the same sort of amateurish dust wrapper protection. I can't moan because the dust wrapper has done its job. It's protected it, but it's, you know, super sleeve. It's not. It's just not my thing. I would rather put my lovely miler wraps on. I think it makes the dust jackets really pop much better than what this person's done. But, you know, fair dues to them. They've saved the book from getting damaged long term, and that can only be commended. So let's have a look at this dust wrapper. So this is almost like a photograph, isn't it? And it's of its time. Michael Dempsey was the designer here, and the book is of its time. But I suppose I prefer the slightly earlier painted covers. This one does look like the work of an art student, but I'm not complaining because it's a great book, absolutely great. So let's see this copy. Looks all right. Nothing on the inside, nothing to rub out. It will just be a bit of dust along the top. And once again, 1966. This one has been signed by the author, an undedicated signature, which is the way I like them. So with signatures, the last thing you want is, oh yeah, hi Bob, best wishes, Dick Francis. What's the point of that? I'm not called Bob, so it doesn't mean anything to me. So I always prefer, even when I go to a signing, unless it's someone I really, really like, and they ask for it to be dedicated, I say, oh, can you just put a signature, please? Just a signature. That's all I want. So quite a little layer of dust came off there, didn't it? And once again, that's probably just because maybe the original owner had these on the shelf and he hadn't pulled them off and hadn't really looked after his books maybe as well as I do. I like to get my books off once every couple of years. You don't need to go through this intricately, but I do put the Hoover along the top of the books. And on my first editions, I do sometimes have like beer towels rather, along the top, just as like a dust wrapper to protect them from dust along the top there. Anyway, that's a beautiful, really, really nice copy of that one in a cracking dust wrapper, which once again I'm really pleased to get. So after this, the books start to become a little bit more common and also much, much cheaper. I just need to get that copy of For Kicks, and I'll be really delighted. But once again, what a lovely copy that is, and I very much look forward to popping that one in a lovely Mylar protection and putting it next to the other ones in my library. So that's that. Now I've got a couple of really, really big, thick books to do next, and as you recall, I have been collecting this series, which is the Hutchinson A Century Of. Now this is a particularly tough one to get. It was an early one in the series, and it's a century of creepy stories. And the reason these early ones are so much harder to find in nice condition is because they really were over 1,000 pages in each book, usually 1,100 or so. And this is a massive sort of omnibus edition of creepy stories. They came out between 1934 and 1937. There's 26 in the series in total, and I reckon I've got about 20 now, so I'm well on the way. I'm almost there. I'm very delighted to get recently the what I believe to be the hardest one, which was the A Century of Horror Stories, edited by Dennis Wheatley. This is all the ones I've got left now are pretty tough to find. There's still a couple I've yet to see for sale, so I'm going to have to keep my eyes peeled for that. So I've got two of these today, and I'm going to actually use the other one, which is the Evening Standard second book of Strange Stories. I know that's a scarce one. I'm going to use that as a little basis just to rest the cover so I can clean the inside of the cover of this one. Now, it's nothing too serious. Make a little bit of room there. But it is, there's some pencil on here, which I can get off fairly easily. So if I grab my rubber here. Now, I think this here, at the bottom there, is actually in ink. But underneath is some pencil. And this bit is obviously pencil. At least by the look of it, it's pencil. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it's very light pen. I mean, this one did come from a book dealer. So you would assume if it was pencil, they would have actually already done it. And in actual fact, although it's fading, it's not coming off very easily, but it is sort of lightening it ever such a little. So just keep persevering on this one. Ultimately, I don't actually mind a name and a date inside a book. Sometimes, the book's obviously secondhand, but sometimes it does sort of add a little bit of charm to a book. It's certainly faded. Let's give it one more go. I think it was just put on with a really, really sharp pencil, potentially. But this Century Of series, I cannot tell you how much I've been enjoying dipping in and out of them. It's right up my alley, with full of short stories in every sort of genre. There's some non-fiction ones as well, books of famous crimes. There's a book on English royalty. It's really interesting. 1001 Wonderful Things is another really great one. Let's see under here. But the short stories and extracts from books, they're not all exclusive short stories. Some of them have been just pulled from longer novels. There's some really, really good stuff there by some top authors. The crime ones, for example, have Agatha Christie short stories in, which are really good. I mean, there's a lot to like in this series, and they just look fantastic on the shelf. So I think they're really, really underrated, and it's not too difficult to start putting a collection together quite cheaply. The hardest bit is finding them in nice condition. That is definitely quite a tough part of the process. So consequently, it's probably taken me over a year to get 20 out of the 26. I have got a dedicated video planned. As soon as I've licked the set, I'm going to do a video with the whole lot on, and I'll include a proper checklist and buyer's guide and things to look out for with them. There we are. That's not too bad. But big ones like this, because they're so big, if you got them stood up like that, you see how, because of the weight of the book, they just drop, which is a real shame. But there's not a lot you can do about it, because this is one of those ones that is a 1,000+ pages. Now the top of this one is not looking great, so I'm going to need to give it the old toothbrush, and it's almost like I want to put a mask on. But let's just see quite how bad it is. Oh God, it's not great, is it? I'm afraid to say, but I'm afraid it's a necessary evil. These books are 85 years old now, so probably no one's ever done this to it. Wiped off and even though this came from a book dealer, I can't imagine they've had the time to go through and clean this up to a sufficient standard that I would like to see. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. The other edges are okay. So while we're here, we might as well do the other one of these. I got 2 this month, so I was really pleased. Both of them are quite tough. So this is the Evening Standard's second book of strange stories. Now, the Evening Standard was a British newspaper published in London. It only recently folded, I believe. It didn't survive because there's the free metro for the capital. And there's a little bit there that needs ripping out straight away, so let's get that done. It's got like a B5 there. Now, I'm assuming that's in pencil, but it may actually be ink. I don't know. Yeah, it's not actually pencil. It's very light and slightly faded ink. So nothing we can do about that, I'm afraid. Let's see the rest of it. Once again, this is another huge tome, but not quite as some of the other books in the series there, but not quite, I don't think, as big as the creepy stories, but still very, very big. Give you an idea of some of the authors in here. Because this comes under strange stories rather than like horror or creepy or ghost. They've got a bit more they can pull from a few different places, but as you can see, the stories are generally 10 to 20 pages a pop. This one is over 1011, so it's about 1020 pages, so still another really, really nice one. This one, once again, has come from a dealer, and I don't believe the top of it looks anything like as bad as some of the things we've seen, but as you know, in a lot of cases it's invisible dust and dirt, so let's give that a try. And look at that, hardly anything has come off there. And that's because it's already been done, or it's just been stored in a much sort of cleaner environment. Anyway, that's 2 more in that really, really great Hutchinson series. So once again, I'm just going to make a little bit of room. We're on the last stretch now. Right then, so the next little batch of books we've got, and we've got about 6 or 7 of these, is the Britain in Pictures series. Now, this was a series that came out during the war, and they went on, did about 120 or so volumes. I think there was maybe even more than that, about 140. And they were conceived during the war as a way, because Britain was very much on her own and as a country, and there was a very real fear that some parts of British life and aspects of British society would be lost forever. So it was decided to produce this series called Britain in Pictures, and each one is a hardback, a fairly robust size, written by sort of bigger names at the time of day. In fact, number 100 is written by George Orwell, looking at different aspects of British life, and they're almost like the King Penguin books, in that they're beautifully illustrated, particularly at a time when paper was starting to be rationed. Each one looking at different parts of British life, and I have started picking a few of these up, and they are actually really, really good. Some of them were reprinted, so they're quite tough to find. But as I said, being only about 150 or so in the series, chances are you can find these out and about. And in actual fact, I've picked up I've picked up 8 of these now, for just a few pounds each, like about £2.50, £3 each. Generally speaking, less than what people have paid for them. Like this one had a £5 price inside. I've only paid a couple of pounds for this. The earlier ones, they are numbered. The earlier ones don't have a number on the spine and didn't come with dust wrappers, whereas the later ones do have a number on the spine, and they did come in dust wrappers. This is another earlier one. English press, so that was actually, I believe, number 1 in the series. That was the very first one, and this is number 2, British Sport. Now, some of these came from the same collection, and what the owner did, he put them in plastic dust wrappers again, ones which I don't particularly like. As you said, it's much thicker. They're not even fully covering the dust wrapper, and I just prefer these. These would be fine without having any extra protection on. I'm not going to bother redoing these because I think they're actually fine. But I'm just going to, as we go along, I am going to take them out of the dust wrappers, because I'm not going to keep mine in them. There we are. I think they actually look better without those really amateurish plastic wrappers that have been popped on them. Now, one thing that is definitely of note is the tops of these are quite dusty. Now, I'll do the internal bits first of all, because these have all got pencil marks in, original pencil prices from second-hand stores. This one's got 3 and 6, probably the original price, and then it's got £3.50, which is obviously a more modern sort of dealer's price. As I said, when you see these around, they're generally cheap, and when you've got a few together, they do make a really nice sort of little collection of books. And as I said, for me, it's almost like they really remind me of the King Penguin book series, of which I've got one here actually to do, so I'll show you one of these now. This would have been an original King Penguin, and they're just ever so slightly bigger size-wise, so if you have a look at that, they're just a little bit bigger, but very, very similar format, sort of pictures and text, of really high quality. So anyway, I won't dwell too much longer on these, but I have got a few to go through. So here's another one here, so book on English music. Same thing again, it's had someone's put an amateur dust wrapper on, which, as I said, is fine. It does the trick. I don't mind people doing that because they're showing willing, but this is even thinner than some of the other ones we've had, and I suppose it stopped it getting any worse, but you might as well have put some bleeding cling film on. It's just so awful. Whereas what we got there, this one actually looks better out of a dust wrapper, and I'm certainly not going to bother putting it in a fresh miler because I just don't think it's worth it. So let's just pop that one against the wall there. Okay, here's the next one, which is British Statesman. Same principle again. Let's have this vintage dust wrapper popped on, and that's absolutely fine. So we'll get rid of that. It's funny, but almost every one of these has been put on in a different manner, and it just shows possibly they've come from different collections or different people have actually done them. But once again, because they've all come in dust wrappers, when you take these off and considering these are now 80 years old, they look blooming lovely underneath. So the dust wrappers is a really, really good way of looking after these. As I said, not all the subjects are going to interest you, but a lot of them will. Let's get rid of this little £6. Cost £6. As I said, my little rule on these is I don't want to pay more than £3 a volume, and I've been fine sticking to that. I've been able to get all of them. You can often pick up job lots online, basically 20, 30 books, and end up paying about £1.50 each, which isn't bad, is it? British Philosophers. Now just look how, although this has got a cover on, it's almost muddied it. It's like looking at through what's the word? It's like looking through through a window. Whereas if we just take off this wrapper, the protection didn't even cover the whole wrapper. But when it's off, it looks much, much better, doesn't it? So we'll slip that one on there as well. And this one, God, £10 this had in price. That's crazy, isn't it? I wouldn't dream of paying a tenner for this. But I would, however, pay my cheapskate £3 for it. God, tenner. I suppose it is a nice copy, but even so. Almost all of these only had the one printing. There's a few that did get reprinted, and they are clearly marked as reprints, so they're quite easy to distinguish if you just want to pick up first editions. This is the later one. This is number 101. It has actually got the number down below there. Life Among the Scots. This one hasn't been, it's in its original wrapper, which hasn't been taken off, or protected rather. So it's got a bit of vintage. This one looks like a £5 price on it. So that's quite expensive. But I guess this is after the war now, so prices have gone up a little bit. And I suppose a hardback book in a dust wrapper, maybe that was the sort of going rate. I don't know. I don't visibly see cover prices on these, but you can see what gorgeous books they are. They really, really are lovely, these. And there's some of the other books in the series. They do encourage you, and they were sort of broken down into different areas: arts and craftsmanship, education, natural history, social life, country life and sport. You could say they're quintessentially British. House of Commons. But as I said, the whole series was called Britain in Pictures for a reason. It is Britain. Although they do cover the Commonwealth, so the British Commonwealth, so places like Australia and New Zealand do get at least mentioned. This one on the House of Commons. It's got a very vintage dedication inside, but there is a bit of pencil underneath with a £3.50 price. So let's get that off. First of all. And then there's another bit, a little bit along there. Looks like another name. But then there is an ink name, and that, I'm afraid, is on this book for good. And it says, what does it say? Uncle Hugh, with love and best wishes, Jerry and Ethel. Uncle Hugh. Whatever happens to Uncle Hugh's copy of his book of the House of Commons? Once again, this one's in a vintage plastic protective jacket, which we shall rip off in disgust. Although it wasn't too bad, but yeah, I'm not a fan. And slip the book back into its original wrapper. As I said, I'm very, very careful with my books, so there's no danger of these getting any more damage because they're out of a protective sleeve. And I've got one more of these, which is number 131. Look at British hospitals. This has also got a price sticker, a price inside, £3, which is my sort of limit. £3, and it was a £5. So let's get that rubbed out. And as I said, I don't go out of my way madly to collect these, but I do enjoy the history of them. Some of them are quite scarce. They've had smaller print runs than others. Some of them are very, very common. But overall, the only one that really sort of commands, sort of collector's money is the George Orwell one, number 100. And for obvious reasons, I guess, because it's George Orwell, he's such a great writer. And George Orwell collectors obviously want that one, whereas Britain in Pictures collectors want them all. So I like George Orwell as well, but I wouldn't class myself as a collector because you need to be very rich to collect George Orwell. There we are. So slip that one back in. And then the last thing these really need is a very delicate sort of rub along the top edge to take off any dust along the top. Now, I'm hoping, with a bit of luck, that I can do these all in one foul swoop. That is my plan. So that I can just about grip them in one hand. So I can run the old toothbrush along the top and look to get rid of any dust, and you can see it coming up in plumes. Oops. Some of them are worse than others. I don't expect to get them perfect by any means. But once again, these are quite old books. In some cases, 80 years old. So they've picked up some dust and dirt. It is literally as simple as that. Hey, some of these have made it through the Second World War, so who's to say? There we are. Now, if you are interested, if this has piqued your interest in the Britain in Pictures, you like the look of these, there is a rather good book that you can pick up called Britain in Pictures, A History and Bibliography by Michael Carney. Now, this seems to be the book to get if Britain in Pictures is something you're interested in. 1950, but I was able to pick one up for 12 quid online, which I thought was a good price. And it lists every single book with the original print runs, and if it had reprints and things like that. A really, really great sort of history of the series. It shows the omnibus editions that they did as well. I think if you're into books, you will really love it because it's a great book on the series. So that's, a quick look at Britain in Pictures. And if I do get any more, I will obviously show them on my cleaning videos. But as I said, I don't get many, but I just came across a run that was really good value for money. And the dealer was happy to sort of let them go at a cheap price. So I was cool with that. So we've just got that one odd King Penguin, and then I've got some cool vintage paperbacks. So on the King Penguins, as you know, I've just got a handful to go. I'm about, out of the 76 that they did, I've got about 70 now, so I'm almost there. And once again, as soon as I've licked the set, I'm going to do them in 2 videos. So 2 videos showing the whole run of King Penguin books, because they're absolutely gorgeous. This was one of the earlier ones I was after, number 40. It's almost the last one that came out without a dust wrapper. So I have been a real stickler with the King Penguins, and I've tried to insist that if the book was issued with the dust wrapper, that's how I have to have it in my collection. So 1948, this one. And that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to give a little rub along the top, because it does look quite dirty along the top there. Yeah, quite a bit of dirt coming off there. And then we're going to have a look. I've pulled out 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 vintage Collins crime paperbacks from the mid-1930s, which are part of this collection of 100 or so books that I bought recently. And that's these ones here. So I bought about 100 of these in the series, right back to the very first one. And these were part of a massive paperback haul that I got recently. It was 14 boxes, 8 boxes of vintage pans, and 6 boxes of other vintage paperbacks, a real mixture of stuff. I've just been blown away by the sort of things I've been coming across. Some of it in fantastic condition, some of it a bit worse for wear. I'm going to keep most of it. Obviously, I've already got a huge collection of Pan books, so I'm going to go through, clean them all up because they all need sort of going over, and then I'm going to go through my own collection and obviously upgrade the copies to keep the best ones. But I've confident that I've got doubles of all the early James Bond books, which I'm really, really delighted about. So I'll be able to compare them against my own ones. And obviously, by selling the Bond books, that will really pay for most of the collection itself, which is great because they're still highly sought after. So here we are then. So Shot at Dawn. This is Collins Crime Club number 5. Yeah, number 5, John Road. Here, quite a bit published by Collins. This one's in a dust wrapper, but it's got a slightly loose spine. So these are going to need a little bit more work than what we've seen on these other two. So underneath, you take the dust wrapper off, that's a really nice sort of robust copy. But as you can see, it's just come away from its thing. Now, I've already done, on all of these, I've spent hours going along the tops cleaning off the vintage dirt. So the tops of these books has already been cleaned, and believe me, some of them were black, absolutely black. So this one, in actual fact, just needs the spine re-gluing. So I've got my trusty Pritt stick, and I'm just going to run a run of glue along here. So that I can re-glue this spine back into place, because this is a lovely copy of this book. Nothing wrong with it at all. And John Road is quite a collectible author, you know, but he's someone I'm rather embarrassed to say I've never read any, at least not that I can remember reading. But yeah, a lot of people really rave. They say it's just brilliant. You should definitely give it a try. And in Collins, of course, he had loads published in this imprint, absolutely loads of books. So maybe before I get a shot of these, because I don't think, I'm tempted to keep them, don't get me wrong, because they're so nice. But over the years, I've only ever had a few. And I don't know, I'm really torn because the Agatha Christie ones are lovely as well. There was, I think, 18 Agatha Christie's out of the 100 books. There's also a couple of rarities. There's a couple of service editions, and there's one, these were also released in India, and there's one Indian one in there. But, you know, once again, those are quite sought after and collectible. And really, you know, I don't really collect them, so I could let them go, and I could put the money that I earn into my book fund to buy some other books. So there you go. Literally on air, I've talked myself out of saving these, but boy, I've been torn. I've been thinking about it and thinking about, I really love them. Maybe what I'll do is I'll read a few before I let them go. Then I won't feel so bad. It's just read it, get a few under my belt. Here we are, R.I.P. Philip MacDonald. This is number 8 in the series. Now this one is fine. It's still in place. It's been cleaned. It's just the 20p. So as I said, in a lot of cases, the original price, what the owner, or rather the collector who bought these, he didn't take out like I do religiously. He didn't go through his books and give them a little tidy up like I like to do, you know, and he folded over corners, sort out, but mainly take out the price inside. I think that's an essential. But that's absolutely fine. That's a really nice sort of copy of that one. Now the next one, well, it's a bit of a dog in actual fact, but it's a classic. It's an Agatha Christie. It is perhaps one of the worst ones in the collection. Why didn't they ask Evans? And as you can see, it really is in a bit of a state. So I think, I don't know if you saw one of my most recent videos where I had a copy of Forbidden Planet, and I managed to restore that one back to something resembling half good. I mean, the sort of tape here is coming off. I'm tempted to just ease it off. Yeah, it's coming off quite easily here. There we are. I think we're going to need to do a number on this one, I'm afraid, guys, because it's a real dog, but I think it can be saved. Yeah, see this vintage tape? It's so old and yellowed, it was probably put on back in the late 1930s, 40s. And it's just sort of withered on the vine, so it's not been too difficult to remove it. So now the book will come away. And get rid of this other bit of tape now. There we are. Okay, there's a little bit of tape on the outside here. Now this might be more problematic because if we remove this, it's going to cause the black to come up, and we don't want to cause any more rips. So I'm going to leave that piece of tape on there. So I think, in actual fact, we can now re-glue that back with the tape out the way, and it may not come out too badly. Awfully dusty. So while we're here, let's get rid of this bit of vintage previous owner's name here, and the 40 pence that it was sold for, probably from a charity shop or similar back in the day, the early days when you could find these in shops. Believe me, you don't anymore. Vintage paperbacks are a scarce commodity outside of bookshops. Now, there's not a great deal I can do with this spine because it is what it is. It'll just pull the book to bits. But I think what we've done is probably about as good as we can get. Let's take that bit out, and it's got the benefit from being on there. It's about as good as it's going to get, which isn't great. But as I said, the only reason I'm bothering is because it is an Agatha Christie. She's highly collectible, and I think some Christie collector is going to want that down the line. There we are. It's not pretty, but it is about as good as we're going to be able to get it. Certainly better than when we first picked it up. So I'm going to delicately re-glue this spine now. Nice messy glue. But I use Pritt stick because you can ever so slightly adjust what you're gluing down once it's been put in place, which is quite good. So we just need to pop this into here and then wrap the cover around, pop it in, and then this is going to need a bit of careful pressing, which it will be because it will be in with its buddies to keep it in position. But I would say that this is definitely going to be better than what was there to begin with all that horrible tape. And possibly for an Agatha Christie fan, they might be able to have this one as just at least a filler until a better one comes along. But you have to ask yourself with a book such as this, even though at the time it probably had quite a large print run, just how many have actually survived? I can't imagine there's loads, you know. But there we are. I mean, that could be better, but it could be a lot worse. So I think we've managed to, that's probably about as good as we're going to be able to get that one. And we'll let that one sort of go off over the next couple of days. Now here's another one, sadly, which is in a bit of an old state. as I was working my way through these, thankfully, he's re-gluing, thankfully, the books got better. They used better glue. So these early ones, as I said, they are quite notorious for being not having the greatest spine glue. So I'm going to just, there's no, at least there's no horrible tape on this, but there is loss to the dust wrapper at the top and the bottom there, and there's obviously not much we can do about that without reproing it. So I'm not in the realms of doing that on this particular one. So I'm just going to glue what's there, just to keep the book complete, or as complete as it would have been. There's no dust wrapper on this, and it would have been issued with one, but it's the only copy of this one in the collection. And for people who are collecting it, so say this was the only one you needed, well, you're definitely going to say, oh, well, I'll have that just for now. I mean, this isn't going to be a lot of money. It's going to be maybe £2-3, you know, if that. But if it was the only one that someone needed, well, brilliant, you know. And it's a vintage crime paperback, and a pre-war one at that. So these warrant saving. It is as simple as that. I would not want to see these thrown away. But if this had gone into a charity shop, there's no way in a million years they would have kept hold of it. That would have just been thrown in the bin, and that would have been the last you saw of it. Right, just 2 more paperbacks to go then, to do this month's cleaning. Although, as I said, I've got enough paperbacks now to be cleaning books for the next 2-3 years, I tell you. Okay, so I'm going to put a bit of a hold on some of these hardbacks and stuff while I work my way through, in fact, all book buying in general, until I've worked my way through some of the hundreds and hundreds of paperbacks I've got to get through. So this is, I've got 2 copies of this. In fact, there's 2 in the collection, Calling All Cards. They look to be the same edition, but one of them is slightly better than the other. But let's just have a look at this one then first. So that's got some vintage tape in there. And, oh, I can feel it. Look, the cover's just come off in my hand. So let's do the same thing again. There's a little vintage 35p under the previous owner's signature there, so we can soon get that off. And then this dust wrapper, well, let's get the toothbrush out. It looks like it's sort of a little bit musty and dusty. There we are. Don't think we can do much else on that. And as I said, I've got 100 of these Collins crime titles that need tidying up. 100. But thankfully, the later ones are in much, much better condition. The 1940s ones, the books are better made, so they've survived better, which is the main thing, isn't it? So let's just pop this one on. There we are. But I have to say, looking through the list, particularly the volumes of this series which are in such lovely condition, I was so tempted just to keep hold of them because they're gorgeous. And I will never, ever have the opportunity to get so many in this series in one hit ever again. So, as I said, I am a bit torn about getting rid of them. And maybe I will. Maybe I just keep them. And you know, I've got loads of doubles of Pans in the collection, which I could sell on, and that'll pay for the books in total. Because there's something really special about 1930s crime, I have to say. Okay, and this is the last one we're going to do today, and it's another copy of Calling All Cards. This one also has a slight bit of that. It's coming away there, so we'll have a look at that. A little bit of vintage pencil. So once again, then the next videos I'm going to be putting up will be I'll film the boxes of the collection that I bought recently, and it is really, really exciting. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. And then I'm not really best sure how to do it, so I'm going to do one video exclusively on the rest of the Collins Crime Club collection, because there's just, as I said, there's 100 of them, and what better opportunity am I ever going to get so many of these done at the same time? So I'm definitely going to be doing that. So that's coming up, and then there's loads of other series that I've got included in there. There's the Hutchinson ones. There's There's other sort of paperback imprints of the time, like Chevron Books. There's Toucan, Jackdaw. There was a run of Ben's Sixpenny Library. There's some Albatross. There's a huge load of Foursquare, and that's quite frustrating because I've just done a Foursquare video of Foursquare books, and there's a real big run of them in there. So I'm going to just do those as like an addition. Basically, it was a dream collection, and all those pans as well. You just can't believe what a lovely run to find. So it's going to really make a big difference to my pan collection, that's for certain. So let's just see if that's enough. So that's what's coming up in the future. So look out for those. It's going to be a lot of book-related videos. Rather than a specific series, it will be a lot of sort of these haul collections, because it's such a massive collection to sort out and process, which I think will be in itself make quite interesting viewing. There we are. So that's them done. So there we go. So that's what's coming up in the future. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. It's certainly been some interesting books there, and I hope it hasn't been too boring for you. Definitely some great stuff to come going forward. Now, if you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing for regular vintage paperback and book related videos. I've got lots on the channel already, and boy oh boy is there lots to come. And I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.